because we are approaching the final days of this cycle of time, it's important not to waste a moment in any activities that are diversions from the realization of the self and the surrender to the God self of all egoic concerns, of all belief in duality, of the ego complex in its entirety, so that the consciousness returns to its pure, original, divine state without any karmic bondage remaining. And the soul is able to experience this final period in a state of freedom from fear, from suffering, from illusion, from attachment, from any other gross or subtle addiction or enmeshment with the phenomenal plane that is now in the process of disappearing, of dissolving, of collapsing, of returning to its original nature as light. All that we consider a material world is just frozen light. And as those light waves, those quantum wave functions decollapse, then the consciousness itself will directly perceive the world once again literally turning to light, with the recognition that it was never anything but that. And that light is never anything but the projection of your own consciousness. And it is this freedom from the ego that is the ultimate prize of life. The ultimate victory of spirit over matter and its illusory processes with which the soul may have been identified and thus captured as a character in the matrix, and feel as if you have lost your freedom and become subject to egoic attitudes that are not in the control of one's will, whether they are attitudes of greed or domination, attachment, security needs, erotic possessiveness, mother complex, all of the various ways in which the ego keeps the consciousness small and stunted and focused obsessively on particular goals that have no relevance to the ultimate destiny of the soul's fulfillment, and simply create further karmic obstacles. And so we want to be free of the pattern in which obstacles repeat, And those obstacles come in the form of narratives. They come in the form of emotionally charged thoughts about the character, the bodily, phenomenal appearing bodily being, as if that were what you are and all that you are. And so the practice of yoga is the practice of becoming free, of returning to our original freedom that we have never lost, but that we have voluntarily forgotten about, and become hooked by the enjoyment of our suffering and of the ego's illusory existence. And so it may be useful to have a larger panorama of the recognition that your consciousness pre-existed this body that you are now using as a vehicle. And your consciousness will continue to be when this body has long ceased to exist. Even when you yourself have long forgotten that you were ever the person you think you are now, your consciousness will continue. And the eternal nature of consciousness, as it is revealed through the silencing of the mind, brings a kind of peace and a luminous power to transcend the phenomenal identification of a being experiencing the resistance of other beings in conflict and in confusion and incoherence. And there is a power to bring the mind and keep the mind in a state of repose, in which the healing intelligence and love of the Absolute Self is able to fill the space of the environment and enable all beings to share in the serenity and equanimity of consciousness that is again at home in the heart of the universal Absolute Self. We are on a journey of letting go, a journey in which we are undergoing a rite of passage of death and rebirth. But the willingness to die to the ego must be fully and wholeheartedly accepted, so that the consciousness can transcend and know itself beyond its dualistic paradigm of reality. To know the whole of consciousness and its source, its luminous principle as the self, not the character in the world. This is the shift of locus of consciousness that is required to enter a state of freedom in which those final challenges, those tests of our courage, of our love, of our purity of spirit, our generosity, will determine the ultimate destiny of the soul as this cycle completes its circuit. And so this is the time in which we should be fully focused on this one priority.